Hello and welcome back. So far, we've been going through the IELTS academic reading section, looking at the types of questions, strategies on how to answer them, and techniques, and we're nearing the end of this section. Before we do though, let's look at some tips and tricks as well as some common mistakes, why they happen, and how to avoid them. Let's look at some common mistakes candidates make while completing this section. With all the exam stress and our nerves building up, we might tend to lose focus and forget that we have a time limit. So we end up making silly mistakes or answering hastily. Remember, you only have 1 hour to complete 40 questions presented to you. This is why practicing and understanding the test format is very important to avoid lack of awareness. Now we'll take a look at how to avoid these common mistakes. Again, these are just a few of the important ones. First of all, time management. Time usually gets the best of us, especially in this section. With the nerves and stress and possible lack of focus, it's easy to let go of valuable exam time. As I've mentioned before, this is a key factor when it comes to attempting this section. The first thing you can do to utilize your time starts from your preparation. Do as many practice tests as you can in order to get acquainted with the format. See how long it takes you to complete the section. At the beginning of your preparation, it might take you more than an hour to complete the paper, and that's fine. You can then go on to practice some more, reducing the time it takes you to complete the section. I would advise that ideally take 45 minutes to complete the paper and leave yourself the remaining 15 minutes to go back and answer any questions you may have skipped. Check your answers and make sure that all the last minute details are filled. The second common mistake that candidates make is reading the entire passage. If you have practiced and prepared, this shouldn't be too much of an issue. But that being said, it's always easy to get distracted during the exam and get interested, we could say, in the passage. This point goes in line with the whole time factor time management point. If you attempt to read the whole passage, you really won't have time to answer all the questions. Moreover, it really isn't necessary to. You just have to find the answers and move on. In order to avoid this, learn the techniques to scan and skim the passage in order to avail the limited time at its best benefits. Remember, depending on the question type, the answers usually come in order, so be on the lookout for that. And if you're really interested in reading the passage in detail, you could always do that at the end, provided you've completed the paper properly, checked, and are happy with all your answers and have some time to spare. The next common mistake is another important one, and that is not reading the instructions properly. This is something we discussed in the previous lessons and how it's important to read the instructions before proceeding to attempt the questions. The IELTS exam will test you in every aspect. Candidates often tend to make this mistake, not reading the instructions properly. It also tests your vocabulary and paraphrasing capabilities, and therefore instructions are very crucial and should be followed. To recap this point, we'll look at an example again. An IELTS reading instruction may look like this. Write no more than 3 words and/or a number. For example, if the answer is the Indian government, it would go wrong if it's written as the government of India because of the violation of the word limit, therefore resulting in losing a mark. In order to avoid this, you really should pay attention to the instructions. Underline them if you have to so that you know what is being asked of you. Another mistake candidates tend to make is ignoring the order of the questions. Usually all the question types maintain an order, except in matching exercise question types. You are prone to lose valuable time if you don't pay attention to the order of the questions. What you can do in this case is underline wherever you found the answers. So if you have found the answer to the question in paragraph 1 of the passage, underline it and look for the answer to number 2 after the answer to number 1, and so on. Remember, this will work for all question types except for matching type questions. And the final common mistake that candidates get stuck on is unknown vocabulary. Sometimes it's possible to encounter a word you may not know the meaning of, and you'll end up spending a lot of time trying to figure out the meaning. Remember, answering questions is more important than the word, which means you do not need to understand the meaning of every word used in the passage. Now, to avoid spending so much time trying to figure out what the word means during the exam, Just take a guess according to the context a word or phrase is used in the passage or a sentence. Sometimes what happens is that in some cases, understanding becomes crucial to answer the question. If that happens, you can search whether the word is defined in the passage. However, when you're practicing and preparing for the IELTS, brush up on your vocabulary. And one way you can do that is learn a handful of words every day. Keep a vocabulary journal, write down new words you've heard or learned and their definitions and their synonyms. Alright, now that we've looked at common mistakes that we can avoid, let's look at some top tips for this section. First of all, don't panic. Think of it this way. You've done your preparation and you've practiced as much as you could, and it's no different to what you've done. So you're ready. Go in confidently and give your best shot at the exam. Again, time management is key, so manage it well. Try not to get distracted during the exam and make every minute count. The next tip is a good one. Try not to leave blanks. As there is no negative marking in the IELTS, just take a guess. You never know, it could be correct. Next up, figure out what strategy works best for you. Over the course of these lessons, I have given some ways to attempt the question types, but while you're preparing, if you find your own way to attempt the question, by all means you can use that. Our next tip is use speed reading techniques to find the answer quicker. As we spoke about it in our previous lessons, using the technique of skipping and scanning will definitely save you some time. Also, always keep your eye out for paraphrased words and phrases. Again, if you want to work on your paraphrasing skills, you can check out the lesson 2.4. Another important tip is be aware of your spelling and grammar. These are aspects that could cost you marks. Next tip, don't waste time on answers you can't find. You can always skip the question and come back to it at the end. Remember to leave some time within the hour to do so. We discussed the next tip just before we started going through the tips, but nevertheless, don't worry if you don't know the meaning of a word. Look around for context or in the next couple of lines to see if the word is defined. And the final tip, look out for keywords and phrases. You can find them by matching words from the question and in the passages. The only thing you have to be mindful of here is that the meanings match. And there we go. Tips and tricks to help you conquer the IELTS academic reading section. We've come to the end of the section. Tune into the other section of the IELTS exam to get you fully prepped up. Also, do take the assessments linked to these lessons. If you'd like more materials on the IELTS academic section, you can log on to our website www.nebula.com and have a look at these skylifts regarding the same. Also, if you'd like to book a one-on-one live skylift with me, you can do so by again going onto nebula.com and selecting the skylift title. For all the material mentioned, the links are provided in the description below. Thank you for joining me. Looking forward to seeing you in the next section.